But the amazing thing there is, like, again, it's like, I think John Cleese, the Monty Python, he's done a lot of talks on creativity. And again, I've mentioned this before. I think he talked about Thomas Edison used to do this thing where he'd be sitting in a room, like complete silence, and then he'd have two metal balls in his hand and a metal plate on the floor, and he'd kind of go into that drifting zone. And just as he was drifting off, obviously his hands would release, the balls hit, it would wake him up. And in that kind of in between sleep and awake state was where he found the most creative ideas came from, because you're completely freeing your mind of everything out there. So
that's so cool. Yeah, I totally get that. You ever right before you fall asleep, you come up with like an idea from something during your day and you want to like write it down on a piece of paper? I used to. I don't do it as much, but I used to just have like a notepad and pen, because I don't know why, but what you're saying like resonates with me so much, because I used to just like, whenever I was like fully, like the noise of the day and your mind can finally just like kind of slowly rest, then an idea would pop in my head. I'm like, that is such a good idea, of like an idea or something I was tinkering with earlier in the day or the week. But
John Cleese used to say like he'd write a script and then throw it away, and then the next day, or he'd sleep and wake up and he'd try to rewrite it, and whatever he'd write would be so much better because he would be focusing on the most important things of that script. So it's like the idea is the first thing you design isn't necessarily the best path to go down. And when you can't think of a problem, the best thing to do is just to walk away and have a sleep, or go out with friends, or just do something that's completely disconnected. So I think, that kind of not getting stuck in this sort of like designer's block is usually that. You just need a break and a rest. And that's just a normal part of the creative process. So again, me being the dark, bleak one, as you're talking about writing notes, I can imagine if I had written that, I've got all these amazing ideas. I wake up the next morning and read what I wrote. It'd be something like, "Don't trust the ducks; they're all spies." Really random like that.
Yeah, that's funny. A little bit more cynical approach, but I think that's why it's a good balance. Yeah, but I think this episode might be a stretch for our listeners, but I think there's a lot here. If you're an interior designer, like, come on Design Huddle. Let's talk. Like, I think something that we want to do for our guests in future episodes is like, Design Huddle started because we both love design. We talk a lot about UX, as you know, but we're going to start interviewing people from a ton of different disciplines. So if you're one of those people that's just interested in other design areas, reach out to us. DM us, tweet at us. We're happy to have you on. Any closing thoughts, Mustafa, before we end the episode, our most famous episode of making parallels between interior design trends and web design trends?
No, I think it's much more interesting as designers to look outside of your design discipline and looking at how other designers try to solve problems. So architects of the past, how they've designed things. Because architects, they see themselves as sculptors of light, because how they position windows will light the spaces, and how you guide someone around a building with stairs and you point things out. And again, these are like basically the equivalent of our buttons or call to actions, right? And I think it's quite inspiring how other design disciplines take this, like, if you think about the notion of going through an app or a site laterally, like, like just thinking, what is it? You're guiding a person, and you think, okay, guiding a person. How does a fashion designer guide a person to wear a jumper? Like, what's the things that they're doing? Are there cues, the buttons, where they're placed or whatever, or in architecture or garden design? And I think those things are much more interesting, because then you can start thinking about how you can emphasize those things to make your design successful. So yeah, and I think you can.
That's beautiful. We're gonna print that on a T-shirt.
What the ducks looking to get us.
That's such a we should get like you're like a cartoonist. You should draw that. I want to see it next episode. I want to see the mock-up for the T-shirts of the duck spot.
Yeah, and then Mustafa's taken away because he needs help. So yeah, we'll be looking for a new co-host of Design Huddle when I get.
Yeah, so this is also like, send me resumes too, because I'm looking for someone else to run Design Huddle with. Awesome. Well, let's wrap here before we go down any more rabbit holes. Thanks, Mustafa, for hanging with me as I really wanted to talk about interior design, because I'm doing it. Shout out to our partners, our wives, for crushing it and being awesome interior designers.
And shout out to our kids for ruining everything with crayons.
Yeah, that's like a little too real. All right, cool. Well, we'll catch you guys on the next episode. Thanks for listening to Design Huddle. If you haven't done so, please make sure you subscribe, and we will catch you on the next episode. Peace.